Madam J broke the heavy silence, her voice trembling with emotion. "Laura, Linda," she began, her eyes welling up with tears. "I need a favor from you both." Laura and Linda leaned in closer, their hearts pounding with anticipation. Madam J continued, "Please, collect DNA samples from both Augustine and me. There's a chance we might be your biological parents." The words hit Laura and Linda like a thunderbolt. Their eyes widened in shock, and they instinctively grabbed each other's hands for support. "Our parents," they chorused, their voices a mixture of disbelief and confusion. Laura's mind raced as she tried to process Madam J's revelation. Her voice was sharp with disbelief as she exclaimed, "You mean Mr. Augustine, the gatekeeper at this hospital, is my father? That can't be true. The Mr. Augustine I know is kind and welcoming, always smiling and making everyone feel at ease as they drive into the parking lot. He cannot be the same heartless man you're describing." Linda turned to Laura, her expression just as incredulous. She then faced Madam J and said firmly, "If you think you can use that letter you found in the laundry against us, you're mistaken. We already have a father, and we know him. His name is Jeffrey." Augustine, who had been quietly observing, spoke up in a calm but heavy tone, "If you already have a father, then I am not your father. Perhaps this is all just a misunderstanding." Laura's voice turned cold. "Exactly. My name is Laura Jeffrey, and I don't need to hear any more of this." She and Linda exchanged a look of agreement, hissed in frustration, and stormed out of the room without another word. Left alone in the tense silence, Madam J's tears flowed uncontrollably. Her body shook with sobs, and she buried her face in her hands. Her crying was interrupted by Augustine, his voice laced with anger and confusion. "How dare you make such claims when they already have a father? Are you trying to destroy their lives? Do you even realize the gravity of your accusations?" Madam J looked up, her eyes red and swollen, and let out a long sigh. "Do you want to know the truth, Augustine? That pregnancy gave me two babies, two beautiful twin girls." Augustine's eyes widened in shock. "Twin girls? What are you talking about? I never knew you were pregnant with two babies." Madam J's voice trembled as she continued, "The day I was discharged from the hospital with the babies, I pretended I needed to pick something up from a shopping mall. I asked the taxi driver to stop, stepped out of the car, and left the babies in the taxi with the driver. I disappeared into thin air because I didn't know what else to do." Augustine stared at her, horrified. "That's terrible. How could you abandon your own children like that? Do you have any idea what they must have gone through?" Madam J's eyes flared with anger. "And what would you have had me do, Augustine? Stay and face your wrath? Endure the humiliation your mother would have put me through? You didn't want female children, and you made that perfectly clear." Augustine shook his head, guilt etched across his face. "I was wrong. I made terrible mistakes, and I'm sorry for everything I put you through. But abandoning those babies was still wrong, Justina. We both failed them." The room fell silent as the weight of their shared regret settled between them. Madam J wiped her tears and whispered, "I hope it's not too late to make things right." Augustine nodded solemnly, his expression filled with remorse. "So how are we sure they are our children? We have no proof." Linda and Laura stormed into the house, visibly upset, their faces flushed with frustration. Laura broke the tense silence as she paced the living room. "You were absolutely right, Linda. It seems Madam J wants to use the information she got from that letter to manipulate us. She better tread carefully, because if she tries anything, I won't hesitate to get her arrested." Linda crossed her arms and frowned deeply. "I never expected this from her. How dare she make such outrageous claims? I can't believe we trusted her. Who does she think she is?" Laura let out a bitter chuckle, shaking her head. She wants to reap where she didn't sow. Does she even understand what we've been through to get to where we are today? The nerve of her. As they continued venting, Linda's phone buzzed on the table. She glanced at it and sighed. "It's Dad calling," she said, softening her tone. "Let me put it on speaker, so we can both talk to him." She tapped the speaker button and answered brightly, masking her frustration as they sat down. "Hello, Dad." Laura joined in quickly, and the two greeted in unison. "Hi, Dad." Jeffrey's warm and cheerful voice filled the room. "My beautiful daughters, how are you both doing?" "Linda, I stopped by the mall to pick up a few things, but you were not there. Is everything all right?" Laura quickly responded, her voice steady. "We're fine, Dad. It's just that we had a small issue to sort out. So Linda stayed home today, so we can handle it together." Jeffrey's tone immediately turned concerned. "An issue? Is it something serious? Should I come over? You know I hate knowing you're upset about anything." Linda and Laura exchanged a quick glance, silently agreeing on their next move. Almost in unison, they replied, "Yes, Dad. If it's convenient for you, we'd really appreciate it." "All right," Jeffrey said warmly. "I'll be there soon. Don't worry about anything. Whatever it is, we'll handle it together." As the call ended, the sisters sat down on the couch, their earlier anger momentarily giving way to a sense of comfort. "At least we know Dad's always there for us," Linda said, offering Laura a reassuring smile. Laura nodded, her expression softening. "Yes, he always comes through." The next day, Jeffrey and the sisters arrived at the hospital and walked into the ward. As soon as Augustine saw them, his face went pale, his hands trembling slightly as he sat up. Fear gripped him as he blurted out in a shaky voice, "Please, I never knew my wife was pregnant with twins. I swear, I'm innocent. Don't arrest me." Madame J, sitting upright on her hospital bed, couldn't help but smile wryly. "Ah, Augustine," she said, shaking her head, "you haven't changed one bit. This is exactly how you were back then, unable to stand up for me. It was your silence that allowed your mother's cruel words to tear us apart. Do you remember what she said? That only weak men produce daughters as their firstborns. That stigma is what dragged us into this mess." She turned to Jeffrey, her tone softening. "Good evening, Mr. Jeffrey. Thank you for coming. How is your wife?" Jeffrey nodded politely, though his expression was serious. "She's doing well, thank you. But what is this I'm hearing? Why would you make such a claim about my daughters? Do you know the pain and confusion this could cause?" Madame J let out a deep sigh, her face etched with guilt and sadness. "Mr. Jeffrey, I swear to you, I am not lying or trying to manipulate anyone. 26 years ago, I gave birth to twin girls. But due to circumstances beyond my control, I abandoned them in a taxi at a shopping mall. When I stumbled upon that letter, I thought there might be a chance these two young women could be my daughters. And now, seeing Augustine here, my husband, it feels like fate. All I ask is for you to let us take a DNA test. I need to know the truth, not for ownership or recognition, but to free myself from the guilt that has haunted me for decades." Linda and Laura exchanged incredulous looks, their anger simmering just beneath the surface. Linda sneered, "We are not doing any DNA test. We already have a father, and his name is Jeffrey. That's the only truth we accept." Laura chimed in sharply, "Exactly, this claim of yours changes nothing for us. We're fine with who we are, and we don't need this drama." Without waiting for a response, the two sisters stormed out of the room, their heels clicking against the tile floor. Jeffrey sighed heavily and sank into a chair between Madame J and Augustine. He ran his hands through his hair, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. He felt torn between the unwavering loyalty to his daughters and the undeniable pain etched on the faces of the two people before him. Madam J broke the silence, her voice trembling. "Please, Mr. Jeffrey, I beg you. Talk to them. Convince them to take the DNA test. I'm not trying to take them away from you. I just need closure, for myself and for Augustine. This guilt is unbearable." Jeffrey shook his head slowly, his voice somber. This is such a difficult situation. To know that their biological parents abandoned them when they needed them the most. Do you know how painful that would be for them to accept? Augustine, his voice choked with emotion, leaned forward. "Please, Mr. Jeffrey, we're not trying to disrupt their lives. We just want to know the truth and make amends if we can. Just help us." Jeffrey leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The room fell into a heavy silence as he struggled to decide what to do next. A week later, Linda, Laura, and Jeffrey entered the hospital room, accompanied by a nurse carrying the equipment to collect blood samples. The tension in the air was palpable, and no one spoke as the nurse prepared her instruments. Augustine lay on the bed, his frail form visibly anxious, while Madam J, sitting beside him, clasped her hands tightly in her lap, her eyes fixed on the floor. Breaking the silence, Jeffrey cleared his throat and addressed the room firmly. "Let me remind everyone why we are here," he began, his gaze shifting between Augustine and Justina. "You both agreed that this test is only to help you find peace for your troubled souls. It's not about claiming any form of ownership or disrupting anyone's life. I expect you to stand by that agreement." Both Augustine and Justina nodded immediately. "Yes, Mr. Jeffrey." Justina replied in a trembling voice, "We're truly grateful for this opportunity. It's not about taking them away from you or forcing anything. We just need closure. That's all." Augustine added, his voice barely above a whisper, "Thank you for allowing this." Linda and Laura exchanged glances, their expressions cold and unyielding. Linda crossed her arms and scarfed. "Let's make one thing clear. We're only doing this for Dad, not for either of you." Laura nodded in agreement, her voice sharp. "Exactly. Don't think for a second that this changes anything. We know who we are and where we belong. This is just to put this ridiculous claim to rest." The nurse glanced at Jeffrey for reassurance before proceeding. Jeffrey sighed heavily, placing a calming hand on Laura's shoulder. "All right, let's just get this over with," he said, his tone weary but firm. As the nurse began collecting blood samples from Augustine and Justina, an uneasy silence filled the room. Justina winced slightly as the needle entered her arm, but kept her focus on Jeffrey, her expression a mix of gratitude and regret. Augustine, on the other hand, avoided eye contact with everyone, staring at the ceiling as if lost in thought. Once the nurse had finished, she packed the samples carefully and assured everyone that the results would be ready within a few days. Jeffrey thanked her as she left the room, leaving the family in awkward silence once more. "Thank you," Justina said softly, breaking the tension. "I know this hasn't been easy for any of you, especially Linda and Laura, but I pray this will help bring some clarity, if nothing else." Linda narrowed her eyes and responded curtly, "Don't hold your breath." With that, the sisters turned and walked out of the room. Jeffrey lingered for a moment, his gaze lingering on Augustine and Justina. "You'd better pray the results bring you the peace you're looking for," he said quietly before following his daughters out of the room. As the door closed behind them, Augustine let out a long sigh and turned to Justina. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" he asked, his voice filled with guilt. Justina shook her head sadly, tears pooling in her eyes. "I don't know, Augustine. But we've taken the first step. Now we just have to wait." A few days later, Agatha, a university student, was returning to school after attending a late-night party outside the campus. She and 4 of her classmates were packed into a small car, their laughter and chatter filling the vehicle as they headed back. Unfortunately, their night took a tragic turn when their car collided with a truck at a sharp bend. The impact was catastrophic. 2 of Agatha's classmates died instantly, while Agatha and the remaining 2 passengers sustained severe injuries. Panicked bystanders quickly called for help, and the survivors were rushed to the nearest hospital. However, to the shock and despair of the rescuers, the first 2 hospitals they approached refused to admit the victims due to the severity of their injuries. After much delay, they were finally referred to Livewell International Hospital, known for its advanced trauma care. Meanwhile, at her home, Angela Desmond, Agatha's mother, was preparing for work. She was buttoning up her blouse when her phone buzzed on the dresser. Picking it up, she noticed the caller ID displayed an unknown number. Curiosity and mild irritation crossed her face as she answered, "Hello, this is Angela Desmond. Who am I speaking with?" The voice on the other end was calm but urgent. "Madam Angela, please listen carefully. Your daughter, Agatha, was involved in a serious car accident in the early hours of this morning. She is currently receiving treatment at Livewell International Hospital, located opposite Craskery's manufacturing company, along Beach Expressway. Your immediate presence is required." Angela froze, her breath catching in her throat. "Did you say Agatha, my daughter?" Her voice trembled as she spoke, dreading the confirmation. "Yes, ma'am, it's Agatha. Please come quickly," the voice replied before the line disconnected. The phone slipped from Angela's hand onto the table as her knees gave way, and she sank into a nearby chair. Her mind raced, her heart pounding. "Agatha," she whispered, her voice filled with anguish. "It must have been another one of those night parties. How many times have I warned her? And now this." Pushing back her rising panic, Angela grabbed her car keys and rushed out of the house. Her thoughts were clouded with fear and frustration as she navigated the familiar streets. Within minutes, she pulled into the compound of Livewell International Hospital. Her face was pale, her hands trembling as she stepped out of the car. Inside the hospital, a nurse at the reception desk noticed her distress and approached. "Madam, may I help you?" Angela swallowed hard, forcing the words out. "My daughter, Agatha Desmond. She was brought here after an accident. Where is she?" The nurse's expression softened as she gestured toward the intensive care unit. "Please follow me," she said gently. Angela's legs felt heavy as she walked down the hallway, her heart sinking with each step. Laura was enjoying her 2 days off from work, relishing the rare opportunity to relax and unwind. She lay on her couch, flipping through a book when her phone buzzed insistently on the coffee table. Reluctantly, she reached for it. "Hello, this is Dr. Laura," she answered, her tone calm but curious. The voice on the other end was urgent. "Dr. Laura, we need your immediate attention at the hospital. We have a patient who was severely injured. Some major veins have been critically damaged, and as the neurosurgeon on call, you're the only one qualified to handle this case." Laura sat upright, her heart racing. "Make sure she's stable," she instructed, her voice firm but tinged with concern. "I'll be there as soon as possible." "Understood, doctor. Thank you," the voice replied before the line went dead. Adrenaline coursed through Laura as she placed her phone down. She quickly changed into something comfortable yet professional, slipped on her shoes, and grabbed her car keys from the kitchen counter. She couldn't shake the urgency of the call. It was rare to be called in on her day off, unless it was a critical situation. Moments later, Laura was speeding down the road toward the hospital, her mind running through possible scenarios. What kind of injuries? How critical is the patient? She wondered, gripping the steering wheel tightly. As she pulled into the hospital parking lot, she parked her car hastily and rushed inside, her white coat fluttering behind her. As Laura entered the ICU, she glanced around, her professional demeanor intact. Her eyes landed on a familiar face, Angela, but she wasn't entirely certain it was her. A nurse guided Laura toward the patient, and as they approached, she guessed the patient might be Agatha. Still, she maintained her focus, examined the injured girl thoroughly, and noted the severity of her condition. She's stable for now, but her case is critical, Laura murmured to the nurse. Then, turning to Angela, she said, "I'll need to speak with you privately. Please follow me to my office." Angela nodded, her face pale and etched with worrying, and silently followed Laura down the hallway to her office. Inside, Laura gestured for Angela to sit while she retrieved the patient file. Opening it, her eyes widened in shock as she read the name. "Your daughter's name is Agatha Desmond?" Laura asked, her voice filled with surprise. Angela nodded quickly, her voice trembling. "Yes, madam, please, do whatever you can to save her. She's my only child." Laura leaned back in her chair, momentarily taken aback. "Your only child," she repeated. "Why didn't you have another?" Angela looked down, her voice heavy with sorrow. "I tried, but I had several miscarriages after having her. None of them survived." Laura sighed, a mix of empathy and determination in her tone. "I'm so sorry to hear that. I can assure you we'll do everything we can for Agatha, but her condition is extremely delicate. If we don't act soon, she may lose her sight permanently." Angela gasped, her hands clasping each other tightly. "Oh, no. Please, doctor. I'm begging you, do whatever it takes. She's all I have in this world." Laura nodded firmly. "We'll do our best, but there's something we need to address first. For the next stage of the surgery, her father's presence is required for a blood transfusion. Can you bring her father here?" Angela froze, her silence speaking volumes. "Finally," she said in a hesitant voice, "he doesn't live here. He's in the United States." Laura's eyebrows shot up. "In the States? Then how are you going to get him here in time? He has 24 hours to arrive if we want to proceed without risking her life further. I think he should do anything for his daughter." Angela hesitated, her voice breaking as she spoke. "He left us a long time ago. I'm not sure how he'll react, or even if he'll come." Laura leaned forward, her expression firm yet compassionate. "Angela, this is not the time to hesitate. You must try. Agatha's life and future depend on it. If necessary, I'll even speak to him myself, but his presence is critical." Angela wiped a tear from her cheek and nodded slowly. "I'll try. I'll call him." "Good," Laura said. "Every second counts, so don't delay. Let me know immediately after you've spoken to him." Angela rose from her seat, visibly shaken but resolute. "Thank you, doctor," she said softly, before leaving the office to make the call. Desmond couldn't bear the weight of the news about Agatha's critical condition. He immediately boarded the next flight and rushed to the hospital. Upon his arrival, the staff handed him the required consent form, which he signed without hesitation. Moments later, Agatha was wheeled into the operating theatre for the urgent surgery she needed. Desmond and Angela found themselves seated in the hospital's waiting room, tension hanging thickly in the air as they anxiously awaited any updates. Hours seemed like days, and every passing second added to their mounting worrying. Finally, Laura emerged from the theatre, heading toward her office. Desmond and Angela immediately stood and followed her, their eyes pleading for answers. "How is our daughter doing, doctor? Desmond asked, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and hope. Laura sighed and placed the patient's file on her desk before meeting their gaze. Agatha is stable for now, she said, careful. But her condition remains critical. She will need another surgery in 5 days to ensure her full recovery. Desmond exhaled in relief, but quickly turned to Angela, his tone shifting to anger. Have you seen what your choices have done to our child? You introduced her to this reckless lifestyle, taking her to night parties, allowing her to become addicted to them, and now, look where we are. Angela's face flushed with anger. She sneered back. Don't you dare put this all on me, Desmond. If you hadn't abandoned us years ago, because of those illegal children I sent out of our home, our family wouldn't have fallen apart. Agatha would have grown up with a proper father figure, instead of feeling like a fatherless child. Desmond's expression softened slightly, guilt flickering in his eyes. Angela, he began, his voice low and filled with regret. I couldn't shake the thought of those children from my mind. I loved them like my own, and their absence created a void in my heart that I've never been able to fill. Angela's face hardened as she interrupted him. And because of that void, you abandoned your real family. You left your only daughter without a father when she needed you most. Do you have any idea what that did to her? And to me? Laura, who had been sitting quietly at her desk, pretended to focus on updating Agatha's file, though she was listening intently to every word of the heated exchange. Desmond sighed deeply, his hands trembling as he ran them through his hair. Angela, you were the cause of all these. We would have raised Laura and Linda as ours, and they wouldn't have known that we were not their biological parents. Angela crossed her arms, her voice trembling with a mix of frustration and sadness. I thought I was doing the right thing at the time. I only wanted to create a better space for our children without them trying to fight for attention. But now I see how much damage I've caused. Desmond shook his head. I regretted ever leaving those children in your care, and who knows if they survive or not. The room fell silent, the weight of their shared guilt and pain filling the space. Laura finally looked up, her voice calm but firm. Right now, what matters most is Agatha. She needs both of you, whole and present. Whatever issues you have with each other, put them aside for her sake. She's fighting for her life, and she needs her parents to fight alongside her. Desmond and Angela exchanged a long, silent look, the gravity of Laura's words sinking in. With a reluctant nod, they both agreed. A few days later, Agatha had regained consciousness and was recovering, though she remained visibly weak. In the general hospital room, her parents, Desmond and Angela, sat beside her, their faces a mix of relief and guilt. Laura stood a short distance away, jotting down notes on her clipboard, while keeping a discreet eye on the family. As Agatha slowly opened her eyes, her gaze fell on Desmond. A faint smile spread across her lips, despite her frailty. Dad, she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper, you came for me. I missed you so much. Desmond's heart ached at her words. He leaned closer, his expression filled with remorse. I'm sorry, Agatha, he said, his voice trembling. I wasn't there for you when you needed me the most. I let you down. Agatha's smile faded as a flicker of resentment crossed her face. You chose those other children over me, she said, her tone laced with pain. But it's okay, Dad, I'm used to it. Desmond shook his head vigorously, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. No, Agatha, it wasn't like that. I was consumed by guilt for failing them, but I see now that in doing so, I failed you too. I'm here now, and I am here for you. The doctor says you'll be fine soon, and that's all that matters. Laura, still writing on her clipboard, looked up briefly. Agatha, you're making remarkable progress, she said with a reassuring smile. In a few more days, you'll be strong enough to leave the hospital." Before Agatha could respond, the door to the room opened, and Jeffrey and Linda entered, their presence instantly changing the atmosphere. They walked past Desmond and Angela, heading straight to Augustine and Justina, who were at the far end of the room. Laura noticed their arrival, but pretended to remain focused on her clipboard, her face betraying no emotion. Jeffrey and Linda barely glanced in their direction. Laura paced the hospital hallway, phone pressed to her ear. "Bring the DNA test results immediately," she instructed firmly. "They're all here, waiting." With that, she ended the call and walked purposefully back toward Augustine and Justina, who were seated anxiously at the far end of the room. Moments later, a doctor entered, holding a sealed file. He greeted everyone briefly before announcing, "The DNA test results confirm that Augustine and Justina are the biological parents of Laura and Linda." As the words hung in the air, he handed the file to Jeffrey and quietly exited, leaving the group in stunned silence. Linda turned to face Augustine and Justina, her voice quivered with restrained anger. "So, you're the ones who abandoned us as newborns in a taxi." She spat. "You don't deserve to be called parents. You're heartless." Her voice rose, drawing the attention of others in the room. From a distance, Desmond and Angela, who had been observing the scene, exchanged uneasy glances. Angela leaned closer to Desmond and whispered, "So, their parents abandoned them in a taxi as newborns. That sounds eerily similar to our twin story." Before Desmond could respond, Laura turned to Jeffrey, her voice calm but resolute. "Dad," she said, addressing him directly, "there's something I need to do. I want to invite a couple to join this conversation." Jeffrey and Linda both looked at her in confusion. "A couple," they chorused. Justina's voice trembled as she interjected, "What for?" Ignoring their questions, Laura walked over to Desmond and Angela, gesturing for them to follow her. "Your presence is needed," she said simply. Without hesitation, they rose and followed her to the group. When Linda saw the couple approaching, her confusion deepened. "Laura, who are these people? Why are they here?" "They looked familiar," she demanded. Laura offered a faint smile. "It's a small world," she began, her tone steady, but loaded with emotion. "Dad, meet the couple who adopted Linda and me, and then abandoned us in the bush when we were just 10 years old." Linda's eyes widened as the room fell into stunned silence, the weight of Laura's words settling over everyone. Desmond and Angela's faces turned pale, and Augustine and Justina exchanged horrified glances. Laura turned her gaze to everyone, her voice cutting through the tension. "I just saved their only child from going blind after a ghastly car accident. All hospitals rejected them, and I was the only one that can handle such case in this hospital." Tears welled up in Angela's eyes as she dropped to her knees. "Please," she pleaded, her voice shaking. "Please forgive me. I failed you. I failed both of you. I don't deserve forgiveness, but I'm begging for it anyway." Linda let out a sharp hiss, crossing her arms. "You're not the only one to blame. After all, our so-called biological parents abandoned us too. Seems like everyone failed us." Desmond stepped forward, his face lined with regret. "When I returned from the States, you'd already been gone for 7 years," he confessed. "I searched everywhere for you, engaged the media, the authorities, every channel I could think of, but nothing worked. The loss destroyed me. I couldn't bear to stay in that house without you, so I left my wife and daughter behind to pay for their errors. I didn't know my wife was capable of doing such. Please forgive me." Jeffrey, who had remained silent until now, looked down at the DNA test file in his hands, then back at the people before him. The tangled web of abandonment, loss, and guilt unraveled further, leaving every soul in the room grappling with the weight of the past. Augustine lowered his head, his voice heavy with remorse. My inability to stand up for what I wanted caused all of this, he began, his eyes filled with regret. My mother had 6 daughters, and only one son, me. She was obsessed with the idea of getting the sons she couldn't have through me. She believed if my firstborn was a boy, I would father many more sons to carry on the family name. Because of this, she tormented my wife relentlessly when she was pregnant. And instead of protecting her, I joined in, frustrated and desperate to please my mother. I made my wife's life a living hell. Looking back now, I see how much we pushed her into the decision she made. She didn't abandon those babies because she didn't care. She was trying to escape the fear and threats we forced on her. He paused, his voice breaking as he continued. Shortly after she left me, I remarried, hoping to start over. But that decision only made things worse. The woman I married lied to me, claiming she was pregnant with my child. When she gave birth to a boy, I was overjoyed, thinking I finally had the son my mother always wanted, but it was all a deception. She manipulated me into transferring all my wealth to her son. Only later did I discover the truth, that the boy wasn't mine. She had been involved with another man all along and eventually eloped with him, taking everything I owned. My mother, who had put all her hopes into this lie, died of a heart attack from the betrayal. I was left with nothing, no family, no money, no home. I lost everything as a result of my own sins. I ended up here, working as a gateman at this hospital just to survive. Every day, I've lived with the guilt of what I did to your mother, to both of you. I don't expect forgiveness, but I am deeply sorry. I was the cause of all your struggles. Linda and Laura stood silent, their emotions swirling. Tears welled up in their eyes, but their expressions remained unreadable. Finally, Laura spoke, her voice firm despite the trembling in it. We didn't do the DNA test for you, she said coldly. We did it for our dad, Jeffrey, not for you. The words cut through the air like a blade. Leaving Augustine's thoughts raced, he was crushed under the weight of his own mistakes. Jeffrey's face was etched with concern as he began to speak, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. Laura and Linda didn't just arrive at where they are today by chance. They fought so hard, through pain and adversity, to become the incredible women they are now. I watched them struggle through life's toughest challenges. I saw their tears, their frustrations, and their determination. I watched them grow from little girls into strong, focused, and resilient adults. The truth is, their focus, commitment, and endurance filled the void you both created in their lives, he continued, turning briefly toward Augustine and Justina. Children are blessings in disguise, and that's something many of us don't fully understand until it's too late. My life was in shambles before they came into it. I was broken, hopeless, and aimless. But then Laura and Linda walked into my world, and everything changed. They gave me a purpose, a reason to rebuild. Look at me today because of them. I have a new, prosperous life and a second chance at living. That's why I'm urging Laura and Linda to let the past stay in the past. Embrace the beauty of today and the hope of the future. Forgive your biological parents for their mistakes. Forgive your guardians for their failures. Allow them a place in your lives. Please, I am pleading with you. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting the pain or condoning the actions that caused it. It means freeing yourselves from the chains of bitterness and anger. You've already built a remarkable life despite all the odds. You're strong enough to build bridges too, if you choose to. Jeffrey paused, his eyes meeting Laura's and Linda's. Whatever you decide, know this: I will always stand by you, as I have from the start. but I hope you'll find it in your hearts to forgive and give them, and yourselves, a chance at healing." Linda broke the heavy silence in the room, her voice calm yet resolute. "My sister and I made a decision long before the DNA results came out, fully aware that it would eventually come. We've decided to forgive our biological parents and let go of the pain they caused us." Augustine and Justina's faces lit up with relief as they both chorused, thank you so much." But Laura quickly interjected, her tone firm. "However, our surname remains Jeffrey. He will forever be our one and only father, even in death. That is non-negotiable." Linda picked up where her sister left off, her voice filled with conviction. "We wouldn't be here today if not for him. If not for his sacrifices, his love, and his guidance, we might not even be alive. So, to you, our so-called biological parents, I say this, respect our decision, and give him the honor he deserves as our father." Augustine and Justina nodded slowly, their faces paling as they absorbed the weight of Linda's words. Shock and guilt clouded their expressions. Laura turned to Desmond and Angela, her tone softer but still resolute. "We also acknowledge the fatherly role you played in our lives, Mr. Desmond, despite everything. Thank you for the love you showed us. You are a good man. For that, we forgive you and your family. You'll remain the uncle and auntie we never had." Linda then shifted her gaze back to Jeffrey, her eyes brimming with gratitude. "Dad, thank you for everything. Thank you for training us, guiding us, and standing by us when no one else did. You are the best father anyone could ask for." Jeffrey's face softened into a warm smile, though his voice was tinged with emotion. "I love you both more than anything." And as for Augustine, he paused, looking toward the man whose face was heavy with shame. "Please, do all you can to support him with his kidney transplant. No one deserves to suffer like this." Justina, who had been silent for most of the conversation, suddenly spoke up, her voice steady but emotional. "I want to donate one of my kidneys to Augustine. If it will save his life, I'm willing to do it." The room fell silent, stunned by her offer. Even Augustine looked at her in disbelief, his eyes welling up with tears. Jeffrey, Laura, and Linda exchanged looks of astonishment before Jeffrey spoke again, his voice filled with quiet gratitude. "That is a brave and selfless decision, Justina. Thank you for doing this." In that moment, despite the complicated history and lingering pain, there was a faint glimmer of hope for a healing and reconciliation. A few months later, Jeffrey's home was alive with laughter and celebration as family and friends gathered to mark his 65th birthday. The living room was decorated with colorful balloons and streamers, the atmosphere warm and vibrant. Different large banners hung across the wall, reading, "Happy 65th birthday, Jeffrey. Happy 65th birthday, Dad. The best dad in the world." And the sound of music mixed with the chatter of joyful conversations. Laura and Linda, beaming with pride, presented their father with a brand new car. The shiny vehicle was parked outside, adorned with a large red bow, drawing admiration from all who saw it. "Dad, this is just a token of our appreciation for everything you've done for us," Laura said warmly as she handed him the keys. Jeffrey, overwhelmed with emotion, hugged his daughters tightly. "You two are my greatest blessings. Thank you for making an old man feel so loved." Jeffrey's wife, glowing with excitement and cradling her baby bump, stood beside him, her smile lighting up the environment. She placed a loving hand on his shoulder and whispered, "You deserve this and so much more." Among the guests were Desmond, Angela, and their daughter Agatha, who was now fully recovered and brimming with health. They mingled easily with the other attendees, sharing stories and laughter. Augustine and Justina, who were now rebuilding their lives and their relationship with their daughters, were also present. Augustine, looking healthier after his successful kidney transplant, stood by Justina, both of them grateful for the chance to be part of this special day. The air was filled with joy and excitement as everyone enjoyed the delicious food, played games, and reminisced about cherished memories. Agatha, holding a slice of cake, joked with Laura and Linda, who laughed heartily. Desmond and Jeffrey sat together, sharing a drink and discussing life. As the evening progressed, Jeffrey stood up to address everyone. "Today, I feel like the richest man in the world, not because of this beautiful car," he chuckled, glancing at the window, "but because of the love I see in this room. To my daughters, Laura and Linda, thank you for being the light of my life. To my wife, who has brought so much joy and another blessing on the way, I am forever grateful. And to all of you, my extended family, thank you for being here. This is a day I will never forget." The room erupted in applause and cheers. The celebration continued late into the night, filled with laughter, music, and the warmth of a family that had found its way through pain and lost to a place of healing and unity. Hello, besties. What's your biggest takeaway from this story? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them in the comments below. I also love to know the country you are watching from. If you were the pregnant Justina, or Laura and Linda, would you have handled the situation differently? Please drop your answers in the comments section below. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more inspiring lessons, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on your notification bell. I can't wait to share another story with you soon. Also check the description below for more of my interesting stories. See you in my next video.
Thank you for watching. Stay blessed, stay inspired, and remember, I love you all. God bless you.